Hello again. This is the Richard and Judy Book Club podcast, exclusive to WHSmith.
This is a question a lot of writers ponder over. How do you know what is the right title for your book? And actually, is it important to get it right?
It is absolutely crucial. I am convinced that some titles are selling titles and some aren't. For me personally, if I'm browsing around a bookshop, I don't want to see something which is really obscure, a title which tells me nothing about the content, or perhaps really quirky. I think it's really, really important to get it right, and that's why, everybody writes, including us, spend such a lot of time discussing it.
I completely agree, and I also think that although peripheral characters' names are probably slightly less important, the central characters' names are critical, and you and I both found that we can't actually write a novel until we've got the names of the characters, and then we start to see them. So yeah, these small details are critical.
Let's discover a little about our author.
Hello, I'm Sabine Durrant and I'm the author of Lie With Me.
Writing or reading?
That's such a hard one. Reading.
Fact or fiction?
Fiction all the way.
Keyboard or pen?
Keyboard.
Writing in silence or with background noise?
Always background noise and always the same pieces of music. So quite often it's Mozart's Requiem, which I usually listen to even if I'm alone in the house through noise cancelling headphones.
Hard copy or e-reader?
Hard copy, but I'm grateful to the e-reader.
Keep books or pass them on?
Keep books.
Who reads your first draft first?
My husband reads my first draft first.
What's your favourite genre?
I love a psychological thriller. I mean, of course I do. Who doesn't? But I also like Georgette Heyer. What genre is that? 1950s romantic Regency fiction. That's quite precise.
What's your favourite book?
Middlemarch.
Best thing about being a writer?
Apart from seeing one's books in the window of WHSmith, being creative.
I was fascinated by the central character of this book, Paul. I mean, he really is the archetypal one-hit wonder. He was still at uni when his first novel was an overnight bestseller. Well, a kind of bestseller. And he's been living off the back of that ever since. And there was something sort of, weirdly charming about his feckless, lying, I'm sorry to say, misogynistic nature. What did you think of him?
I thought he was a complete manipulator, somebody who takes advantage of everyone in every way. I mean, he's in his 40s now, a complete failure, hasn't written a successful book, in fact, since his first one, and
he's written them, but they've all been turned down, haven't they?
His last book's been turned down, and he's run out of money. He's living in London. The only reason he can manage to live in London is because he's borrowing a flat from a friend who's gone abroad.
And he pretends it's his.
Then the friend says he's coming back, so he's got to get out, so he's homeless. And then he manipulates, or tries, and thinks he's succeeding, to manipulate an older woman who's got her own house in Clapham and the house on a Greek island. Purely for sexual advantage. She's older than him, but he thinks she's all right, and wants basically to be invited to this house on the Greek island,
which he manages to engineer. And then he gets out there and he thinks he's in clover, and we discover quite quickly, how subtly, that he's not. In fact, far from being in clover, he might well be in danger. Did you, given that you didn't like him, did you quite enjoy the fact that he got himself into a potentially fatal mess?
No, I felt a bit sorry for him in the end, which I think was the author's intention. Yeah. I did feel sorry for him. Basically, chancer and nasty sort of liar that he is, he basically becomes manipulated by the people he thinks he's manipulating. He thinks he's getting all the advantage sexually and financially from this arrangement on this Greek island. What he doesn't know is that the people concerned have a secret of their own, a very dark and very tragic and very sad secret, and they are determined to make him the scapegoat for that. And, they do.
I stood when I got to the bottom of the steps in the shadow of a fig tree and studied the scene. I thought of those paintings by Hockney. The pool was a geometric arrangement of lozenges, white squiggles. Bodies lay motionless. I made out the 2 teenage girls, their narrow backs curving up above their bikini bottoms, hair across their faces, their thighs pink and exposed. Beyond them, furthest from me, 2 other figures. Andrew was leaning back on his lounger in a pair of dark blue swimming trunks, a Panama hat on his head, and a book in his hand. Alice was perched sideways on the side of the next sunbed, a towel over her shoulders.
Well, welcome back to the Richard and Judy Book Club, and we've got a cracker for you today. This is called Lie With Me, written by Sabine Durrant. Hi Sabine.
Hi.
Let me kind of summarise it for you. Paul's best days are behind him. He wrote a hit novel in his 20s when he was a good-looking charmer. Now he's a 40-something failure, losing his looks, and he's lying to get by, always has done really, casually exploiting friends for his own ends, which leads him to sun-drenched Greece and into deep trouble. And I'd just like to quote the very first line of the review that Judy and I wrote for this book, which you can see online. The opening couple of sentences. We might as well be straight with you. You're not going to like the main character in this book, Paul Morris. In fact, you're probably going to loathe him when you're not consumed with contempt for his lying, manipulative, misogynist ways. He's a sort of Donald Trump manqué, isn't he, really?
Oh, don't say that. That's
Without
awful.
the comb over. No.
No, he doesn't look anything like Donald Trump, thank God.
No, and he's much. He is. I mean, he's. I don't know if Donald Trump is nice to animals, but Paul is nice to animals.
That's his
Some
redeeming
redeeming
feature.
features,
He
yeah.
rescues dying bees from pools and things.
He's a really interesting character. I mean, he's not, as I say, automatically likeable, although he does have redeeming features, and one does begin, as the story unfolds, to feel sorry for him. But what made you choose such a kind of a prickly, difficult, dishonest central character for a book?
Well, I had the idea for the character first of all, and I think what I wanted, the sort of game I wanted to play, which is quite interesting within a psychological thriller, is somebody who you don't necessarily like and who is difficult and sort of contemptible in lots of ways, but that I wanted the reader's sympathies to somehow come round to him, and it was a sort of challenge
Transcend his
to
weaknesses.
transcend his weaknesses, yes. Yeah. And there are people in the book who are on the surface morally upright, very sensible and hardworking and not obviously liars. And I just wanted to sort of have this interplay between this character who was honest to us, but not to other people.
Yeah, and basically it's kind of a story of the arch manipulator being incredibly manipulated by himself.
Yes.
Everything turns on its head and he ends up in dreadful, dreadful trouble.
Yeah, so I wanted to plant these character flaws and these lies, which he thinks he's using to manipulate everyone around him. But we don't want to give away too much, do we? But I wanted somehow there to be this kind of little thread that you can then tighten at the end, in which he's the person who is getting himself into trouble as much.
Yeah.
It's all his little mistakes.
So a bit like that very funny character in, Love Actually? No, it's Bridget Jones, the guy who's living off his only ever #1 hit,
Yes,
from years
yes.
ago. This guy's living off his first novel. He got to number 11, didn't it? I think,
Yes, he thinks that it's this great success. In fact, one of the things the book slowly unveils is that perhaps even this great success wasn't even that great.
No. But you can just get us going with the narrative then. Here he is. We find him. He's finally having to leave the flat that he's been sharing with a friend. It's his friend's flat, but he pretends to other people that it's his.
Yes,
he's
been
finally having to
cat-sitting,
leave.
yeah.
He's kind of running out of road. He's pushing 40. He's on his uppers. He's running out of lies, and then he bumps into an old friend in a bar, doesn't he? Just get us started on the story.
He bumps into an old friend in a bookshop.
A bookshop.
And he doesn't quite remember him. They were at Cambridge together, and he doesn't. But he has a sort of sense that maybe this chap has done rather well for himself. He's a lawyer, and he just thinks, well, maybe if I say yes to this dinner invitation, who knows? He's open to anything.
Yeah.
He goes
Free
on,
food, free dinner.
free food, free wine. The guy's mentioned some bottle of Chateauneuf du Pape that
Yeah.
he sort of pricks up his ears at. And when he goes to dinner there, he meets this rich, nice, reasonably attractive widow, far too old for him, at least 45, and mainly he goes out with girls in their 20s.
Yeah.
And he finds out that she has not only a room that's about to be vacated in her house in Clapham, but also a holiday house in Greece, which sounds rather enticing.
And they invite him to go to Greece with them.
Eventually. I mean, he has to really work hard to get that invitation, lie along the way.
Yeah.
I love that part of the book. He was like a fisherman on a slow day,
Yes, exactly.
waiting for a bite.
Yes.
But he finally gets it. And I think we can talk up to this point in the book. He goes to Greece. Where would you say, as readers, do we begin to realise that things are not quite as advertised?
Let me think. I think when he gets there, they're a relationship. I think this one of the reasons why I wanted him to go out of his comfort zone and to go to this Greek island, I think, and go on holiday with these other people. As he arrives, they've already been there a couple of days, and he's aware of undercurrents and relationships she's gone on holiday with her old friends. But there are things going on within the relationships that are sort of slightly odd.
Yes.
Yes, you write that very well, I think, the husband and wife and Alice, the older lady. You write that very well, but you sense, as the reader, you sense really early on that something is going on here. Something's going on between those people, and he doesn't know about it.
No, that's right.
And that's the important thing, really.
And why did you pick Greece?
Well, I wanted somewhere very hot, reliably very hot. I wanted everybody to take their clothes off, sort of metaphorically and literally. And I wanted the contrast with sort of wet Clapham.
Yeah.
And why did I choose Greece? I wanted an island, and I wanted an island that had different types of tourism. So it seems to me that those Greek islands are rather brilliantly poised between, often they're in the south, the kind of slightly tacky, where one's teenage children go and get drunk all the time. And then the north, it's always the north, isn't it, where the middle classes go and have their lovely villas and rent their boats.
Yeah.
So I think that's really why.
And what would you say about, if you like, fate and destiny as it unfolds in this book? I mean, to some extent, we're all the authors of our own fortunes and misfortunes, aren't we? Unless we're unfortunate enough to be caught up in something like Aleppo, where obviously events are way beyond our control. But in the normal world, as it were, do you feel that to some extent what happens, and we won't say any more than that, is really at its heart because of the person that he is? He's got himself into this.
Absolutely, that's what I really wanted. I wanted his personality to be the thing that catches him out. Sort of. I mean, there are sort of other things that go on that you realise that he is hapless, and that is where your sympathies then begun.
But do you think that's how the world turns, actually? That we are, to some extent...
you reap what you sow, don't you?
Absolutely. All those old saws
things,
and cliches, they're true, aren't they?
Yeah, you get the face you deserve, you smile enough.
Exactly.
So I don't know if that's true, but I'd like to think it is, yes.
Now, let's talk a bit about the writing process. We love doing that, Judy and I, now in the book club, because we're very arid writers ourselves, so we're fascinated by how other people do it. And what's struck us over the last few years is that everyone does it completely differently. What's your process? Do you write peripatetically, or do you have a set process for the week or the month, or what?
I think because I have a training as a journalist, I have this feeling that I have to write 1,000 words when I'm working a day. Right. And when I was at the Independent, at the end of the day, we used to file our copy. I mean, there was a button on the old ATEX system that we had then called H&J, and you used to press H&J and send. So at the end of every day, I like to feel that I've done my 1,000 words, that I can sort of H&J.
Do you know what H&J stands for?
Hyphenate and justify.
God, modern journalese. All right.
So, not modern, I think.
No.
And is that 7 days a week, or do you
No, I do it 5 days a week.
Right.
And occasionally in the run-up to Christmas, I think it's perfectly fine at my age to work 4 days a week. So sometimes, but then I do... So last week, for example, I only wrote 3,000 words because I had a busy week with Christmas shopping. And
I think 3,000 words is...
But I made myself do it at the weekend. So I did catch up.
You filled in at the weekend?
I filled in at the weekend.
And do you tend to write very tight to deadline? Do you wait and think, oh God, here we go, I've got
I
to
do
do
it on a daily basis, I do. So on a daily basis, I sort of mess about a bit, walk the dog, tidy up the house, and then do my writing.
And do you always, as soon as you finish one novel, do you always start almost immediately the next?
No.
Oh, thank God for that. Neither do we.
But I'm always thinking. So I am thinking. I'm writing one now. I'm about a third of the way through, and I'm thinking about the one after that. So I'm now thinking about 2 after this.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just thinking about the next one, full stop, end of, and only thinking.
I'm just thinking about the one I'm supposed to be writing at the moment.
Well, somebody said to me that thinking is as much part of the process as the writing.
Yeah.
So
That's true. No, that's absolutely true. And sometimes it's like 5 a.m, isn't it?
Yeah,
you get up for a drink of water, you come back, and the light goes on, as
absolutely.
it were. Yeah.
Brilliant idea that's going to transform the rest of the...
Yep.
Okay, Sabine, thank you very much. It's a lovely book.
Oh, you'll really enjoy it,
interesting.
everybody. Lie with me, Sabine Durrant, not her first, she's had great success before this. As always, it's worth pointing out that if you get it from WHSmith, it's a special edition, basically. You get it with lots of extra content. There's an author's Q&A at the back, there's remarks from Judy and me, there's other content which you won't get anywhere else. So if you're going to go for it in style. Get it at WHSmith. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Sabine.
Richard and Judy's Book Club podcast, exclusive to WHSmith.
Writing or reading?
Reading.
Writing.
Reading is so much easier than writing.
Reading, every time.
Writing in silence or with background noise?
Absolutely writing in silence.
I would say background music. I always write with music in the background.
The television.
Keyboard or pen?
Keyboard for me because I had an accident when I was very small and I lost the use of my right hand. So I type with one hand, and when I used to write with pen in one hand, I was terribly slow, but I'm much faster with the keyboard.
Definitely keyboard. Although I'm an old-fashioned girl, I do write on a keyboard.
Keyboard.
Keep books or pass them on?
I keep my books. I can't pass them on. People can get their own damn books.
Keep them. I know I can't pass on a book.
Keep the good ones.
Oh, that's difficult, but I'm very selfish, so I quite like to keep them.
What's your favourite book?
Oh my gosh, how am I supposed to answer that? What's my favourite book? This is horrendous. Oh my goodness.
I love an end of the world book. I love sci-fi. I love Stephen King. Stephen King is one of my favourite writers.
Our next author tackles the subject of autism, and he knows a thing or two about Minecraft. Keith Stewart is next on the Richard and Judy Book Club, exclusive to WHSmith.
And his book is A Boy Made of Blocks. And you can find out more about a really great read and its author on the next download. For now, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Richard and Judy chat to Keith Stewart next time in the book club, exclusive to WHSmith.